communities and being able to put together what do they have to sell themselves on.
Well, you know, the Prepared Cities program is designed, but it makes them look at the community objective. And from that objective is a specific guidance within the piece of data. But it's designed to keep them from forgetting something that's important. And I've not felt it. And it needs to be brought out in such a fashion so as to create a local organization that's not fighting amongst themselves. And I find that the physical needs of the community are much
not include total charges. There are charges like customer deposits, advances. The exposure and analysis I have with debt income did not seem to be covered debt. That's taking the question. Did you say that Dr. Belmont discovered this prior to the submission?
That page 17 read, pre-tax. You did state that you were a investment analyst, a financial analyst.
Place and full interest rate. The only distinction with the account. Based upon
has corrected his work papers, that our original request for his work papers be complied with at some point by the staff, and these changes and
We have been doing that in several cases of putting together, helping them package a promotional. That is one aspect we have been working on with communities and being able to.
really, the thing that kind of excites me about that, the TVA can support them, we can support them, the power companies, the utilities from through, but it makes them look at the community objective. And from development work, the successful communities in Alabama, as well as anywhere else in the country, are those communities that have had a viable and ongoing local economic development program. Now, there's been a host of agencies created over the years to provide federal monies for one type or another, and those have been used, in some cases not very well. But it's the local economic development organization and effort that causes a community to be successful. And we don't believe that that ever really moved from the local effort. It needs to be brought out, and it needs to be brought out in such. At the same time, we recognize that the responsibility has not shifted.
I can't remember how
High
old I am.
interest
Of
rates,
course, I
the
think it's a
federal
poor woman
deficit,
who don't
and the
lie about
highest
their
number
age
of
and weight. If he
unemployed
won't tell
workers
her
in the
age,
nation
he'll tell
since
anything.
World War II.
But now
If those
have
aren't the problems in this
today,
country, I don't know what
Steve
they
just
are.
brought me up to date
And that's
on
the way Ms. Collier started her
15.5%
address to the
interest.
Montgomery
The
Kiwanis
next
Club.
one we depend
It
on
was a
is
speech of
farming.
dire predictions.
Heard
Ms.
about the
Collier
state of
says the
industry,
nation
you
is
might not
caught
think
in a
that's a good
downward
business
spiral brought on by
right
an
now to be
unfair
involved
balance of
with.
trade with other countries.
National Industries is doing okay, but it's in spite of what's happening to the auto industry. National is doing something I don't like to do. We're building our business on the bones of our competition, U.S. competition. We're taking over the business of companies that did not make it and are no longer in existence. I don't know how long we'll be in business.
Ms. Collier
That's
says
what I
every
want to
time
talk
a
to you about
U.S. firm
today.
moves outside the country for
As I
cheap
started
labor,
studying
we are
this,
exporting
I've
jobs.
never
And she
owned a
was sharply
restaurant,
critical
a
of lack
hotel,
of government action to impose a
matter
tariff
what you
on
are.
imports. She says our economy is based
You
on
are going to be
farming,
affected
natural
with that in your
resources, and
lifestyle, your
manufacturing.
life is
And
sooner or
cheap
later
imports
gonna
are
go down
pulling
about
the
6
economic
notches,
base
maybe
out
to
from
the
under the
United.
U.S.
Because natural resources and farming cannot support this country. Neither can service industries. Service industries without the American manufacturing base can't make it.
Ms. Collier says what industry needs to survive is a 20%
industry
tariff
is
on
not-
all manufactured goods coming into the U.S.
Where's
Ms.
franchise
Collier says
dreams
there's nothing wrong with
given by Bob
protectionism.
Brown?
We need it.
No matter
Tom
what
Foreman,
you are,
WSFA TV News.
you are going. What I'd like
The
to do
nation's
is use
economy
the automotive
depends on
industry
natural
as an example of
resources,
how the
farming, and
policies of the United
manufacturing.
States are
And
affecting the
manufacturing
American
isn't doing
industrial
very
base
well.
and what
That
we
was
can
Ms.
do
Collier's
to
message
solve
to a
the
Montgomery
issue.
Kiwanis
A
Club
little bit more
today. That American
serious
industry is
business.
taking a beating
think
at the
I said
hands
so.
of foreign countries where goods
In
are
order to
produced
do that, we
cheaply
have
for
to look
quick,
at what's
easy
wrong with
sales
the
in the
economy.
U.S.
We are caught in a spiral or a circle involving unemployment, government deficit, and high interest rates.
Ms. Collier
It's a
thinks the
situation
solution to
in
the
which
problem
one
is a
element feeds the
20%
next,
tariff on all
and if that
imported
happens, the
manufactured
spiral
goods.
continues.
She says almost every country in the
Unemployment
world
leads to
has
a
tariffs
worsening
on
of the budget
imports, and the
deficit
United States
because of
must
social
impose
programs
some
the
tariffs of
government
its
must
own,
fund to
or
care
our
for
whole
the
economy,
unemployed and their
supported by
dependents.
American industry, will
President
soon be
Reagan said that
lost.
each percent.
Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
The three-man investigative team began interviewing a number of store employees about Walmart's hiring practices and working conditions.
What we have found out so far, we're just getting basic information in regard to the allegations, and it's too early at this point in time to be able to draw any type of conclusion of what we're finding out.
Washburn says if the allegations are true, the situation will be corrected to ensure that all employees are treated fairly. Store investigators also met with members of the Dallas County Black Leadership Council. President Reverend F.D. Reese told me about the group's next move.
We hope that from this meeting, the officials from Walmart will give to us their positions on the alleged practice of discrimination with employment here, and that from that we will be in a position to let them know what position we would take with regard to their response.
Meanwhile, picketers say they'll continue their selective buying campaign until the alleged complaints are settled. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News in Selma.
Supporters of the latest reapportionment plan say the Justice Department basically approved the new plan because it cleared 98 out of 105 House districts.
What it does is approve 98 House districts and 31 Senate districts. It reserves judgment on 7 House districts and 4 Senate districts. The letter makes clear that no objection is being interposed to those districts, but that the Justice Department has not had sufficient time to conduct sufficient evaluation to make a decision on those districts.
Joe Reed, who's filed suit in federal
it or
district
you
court
don't.
against the legislature's
clear it-
plan, has a different opinion of what the Justice Department letter says.
It's a rejection because you either clear it or you don't. If you clear it, you have not entered objections. If you do not clear it, you have entered objections. They have enumerated several objections they have, and therefore that nullifies the plan. And of course, that's where we are. There's no plan that the Alabama legislature can go to the courts and tell the judges that we have a plan that has been pre-cleared. They do not have one. They know it, we know it, and anyone who can read knows it.
Thagard says they're negotiating with Justice Department officials about the 7 House districts in question and indicate the problems might be worked out. Reed, however, says just because the Justice Department pre-clears the legislative plan doesn't mean Alabama's home free. In the meantime, attorneys for the legislature have filed a copy of the Justice Department letter with the 3-judge federal panel that will review the reapportionment plan. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News. Black leaders like Joe Reed of the Alabama Democratic Conference say the Justice Department has again rejected the legislature's reapportionment plan. He says all of the plan must be approved before clearance is given.
I gather from the letter that the state of Alabama could, if it would, do certain things that could meet the Section 5 objections. But one thing that people often miss, a Section 5 pre-clearance does not make Alabama home free.
Making necessary changes is what Thomas Thagard, an attorney working for the legislature on reapportionment, is trying to do.
Well, we intend to pursue active negotiations with the Justice Department to attempt to resolve the problems relating to those districts, and hopefully we can resolve them.
Eventual approval of the reapportionment plan by the Justice Department won't be the end of the conflict. There's still a federal court suit challenging the constitutionality of the new districts. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
Leaving Montgomery this morning, Governor James said he was fired up at the prospect of thrusting what he called needed and cost-saving reform issues into the 1982 legislative and gubernatorial election races. In Dothan this morning, the governor received a warm reception from a business group when he said his state employee and teacher retirement reform would save the state an estimated $50 million a year, but still allow some of those workers the option of keeping their current benefits. The governor also told a group in Saraland that he intended to offer a bill to increase the layman membership of the state school board textbook committee and his crime law reform package. Although the governor said his only campaign is for these issues, he couldn't escape the repeated question about his political future. The governor never fully answered that question, only telling the press in Mobile that his plans for re-election or political retirement haven't been made public yet. Tomorrow, the governor takes his reform issues to the media in Montgomery as he meets with radio, television, and newspaper editors and the Capitol Press Corps. Reporting from Gulf Shores, Chris Brimshaw, WSFA TV News.
Not given very much attention to what taxpayers can afford. We really, government at all levels. Other issues, the Public Service Commission is still under a cloud of that. I hope to address again is to restructure from the ground up the Public Service Commission and restore some credibility. Now, you know, people can run on a platform and say we'll have lower energy. The actions of Ways and Means Committee. In fact, if the rest of the legislature had been as responsible as Ways and Means, I believe the state would be better off financially today than what it is.
Taxation without representation. That's how some people at the rally describe what's happening to them this year. Rally leader Richard Jordan says the Revenue Department isn't elected, but they're in charge of setting guidelines for taxing property. He says years ago, people like that were called roundabouts. Dallas County Tax Assessor Dale Curry is also heading up the move for rolling back the taxes. He says he'd like to see the legislature revamp the current law and require property owners to pay the same taxes they paid last year and have a property re-evaluation for taxes in 1983. Many of the people here say a group such as this is the only way they know to make changes and to be heard.
I'm just trying to hold my taxes down. I realize that, you know, we need more taxes, but a jump like they're putting on us is really something more than I think a lot of people can stand.
Each person at the rally signed a petition formally making them part of a tax revolt that began in Dallas and Pike counties. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
All levels, by the simple process of keeping the vote. There is a problem. The banks run this country to get the job done. As a Republican, he has money interests in this country. With income tax laws. And point number 6, with a 4% prime interest rate.
At the Montgomery County Courthouse, a big turnout tonight for what some people are calling the beginning of a tax protest. Gina Gregory of our staff is at the courthouse where this live report looks like quite a good turnout tonight, Gina.
That's right, Bob. Leaders of this rally say the main purpose here tonight is to educate people on how their 1982 county property tax appraisals were figured and what they can do to change them. More than 500 people are packing this courtroom. They're here to find out if there's a way to put off paying their 1982 ad valorem taxes. Dale Curry is the tax assessor in Dallas County. He calls the tax program in 1982 a sham, and he says the best way to make changes in the law is through the legislature. Mr. Curry, what is the problem with these property tax?
The problems with the property tax at the present time are based on values of 1979 and 1980. And everybody knows that the market values of 1979 and 1980 are not what they are today. The market has taken a tremendous decrease, and there was not an economic factor built into this particular program to show us or for us to utilize for tax purposes this year. We would like to get this program put off 1 year where we could build in an economic factor where this would be more fair to the public.
What should we do to change it?
What I'm encouraging people to do throughout the state is contact their local legislatures and get the legislature to enact some type of legislation to put this program back where it was. The original 3-judge panel had this program to take effect in 1983 tax year. The Department of Revenue went back in and asked them to move it up to 1982. We would like it moved back to the original date of 1983, so it'd be due and payable for your taxes in 1983.
Mm-hmm. Are groups like this helping to get that done?
I'm sure groups like this are helping get this done because this is actually an election year, and the more people that contact their legislatures, the more action will be done in this special session coming up. We have a senator here tonight that has said that he will introduce legislation to this effect at the next special session.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Curry.
Thank you.
And Bob, back to you.
Thanks very much, Gina Gregory, live at the Montgomery County Courthouse. Elsewhere on the economic front tonight, the Tennessee...
Yesterday's meeting lasted about 2.5 hours. While the three-man investigative team and the Black Leadership Council were discussing the findings inside, outside the picketing continued. But today, the selective buying campaign ended after both sides reached an agreement.
Walmart continued to staff department heads and other key positions with qualified personnel without regard to race or color. That all statements of understanding and agreements would be put in writing by Walmart officials and given to me as president of the Black Leadership Council by Monday, June the 14th, 1982.
Also, the agreement says Assistant Manager Henry Cook will be transferred to another Walmart store and a black assistant manager be hired immediately. The agreement says the store will continue following a fair and just promotion and demotion procedure regardless of race.
Reverend Reese told his picketers to stand by just in case their services may be needed at other stores in Selma. He says the Black Leadership Conference has learned that other stores may be practicing discrimination in its employment, and Reverend Reese says that simply won't be tolerated. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News in Selma.
Rayner and representatives of South Central Bell Telephone announced this morning the new system will be called the Alabama Tandem Telecommunications Network, or ATNET. It will replace the current Alabama Centralized Telecommunications Network, the AX line. Montgomery District Manager for Bell, Todd Strange, says the new system will utilize the most advanced technology available. It will have a greater capacity to handle calls. It will be quicker and more efficient, and it will be cheaper.
Obviously, when you have enhanced efficiency and the complaints in the state organization about not being able to get a line to conduct state business, you're going to get greater productivity by having that capability to do it instantaneously and at the same time reduce your cost some $8.2 million. I think that marriage is very compatible.
The ATNET is slated to go into use in 1983, and it's under a 6-year contract between the state and Bell. Asked how much current telecommunication systems cost the state, Rayner said, "I doubt that we really know, but the new system will probably mean extensive and substantial savings." Reporting from the Capitol, Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News. State Finance Director Rex Rayner and South Central Bell Company spokesman say the new system, the ATNET, will go into use in 1983 and will utilize the latest technology in telecommunications. Montgomery District Manager for Bell, Todd Strange, says switching centers for the new system will be located in state government facilities in Decatur, Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Mobile, and Montgomery. Strange says the new system can mean greater worker productivity, since it will mean quicker and easier telephone connections between state offices. The new system also promises out-of-state long-distance calling. The current ACT system is limited to in-state calls. And all of this comes to the state at a cost of $7.5 million a year for the next 6 years. Rayner calls that a substantial and extensive savings for the state. Although Rayner also says the state system is so widespread, he doesn't really know how much telephone service currently costs the state every year. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
The AEA is distributing a pamphlet, 17 Reasons You Should Say No, giving their reasons for opposing the governor's package. AEA spokesman Mary Jane Akel told us the two main reasons the teachers are against the package.
Now is a very difficult time financially for everybody, and I think that the governor knows that. I think that many teachers are having a hard time paying their mortgages and paying the expenses that they have month to month, and it'd be very enticing to withdraw some money out of there. And even though, yes, they have the option to leave it the same, they may want to look at today and not be concerned about tomorrow as much as they should be. Another problem that we have with it is that it totally sells out the future generation of teachers. We do not have national average salaries in this state to offer people to go into the teaching profession, so the teacher retirement system has been an incentive that the employers could offer teachers to get them to teach in this state.
The Alabama State Employees Association will join AEA in fighting the retirement changes. Employees Association Director Paul Smith says state workers are leery of any changes in the retirement plan.
I just don't think we can put the faith and credit in what he says about
what benefits this is going to be and what savings are going to be and how fiscally sound it is.
The next 2 weeks leading up to the special session promises to be a time of charges and countercharges over the proposed changes. Mac Carmack, WSFA TV News.
The pass. It's come to pass.
The next 2 weeks leading up to the special session promises to be a time of charges and countercharges over the
These people rallied like others have in Pike and Dallas counties to protest high ad valorem taxes. They say their new property appraisals are too high and they don't want to pay them. They're looking for ways to get around the Department of Revenue's order to collect those higher taxes in October.
Back in July 3rd, 1980, the commissioner gave an update to bring property values up to 1980 values, have them completed by September of '83 to collect taxes that year. And then he amended the order June the 13th, 1980 to bring it up to 1982 and collect taxes in '82, so he actually moved it ahead a year.
Leaders of the Pike, Dallas, and now the Montgomery tax revolt rallies blame the Department of Revenue for setting the high taxes and for hiring evaluators who they claim don't know what they're doing. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
Let's give this class a big hand. Michael G. Kelly. Officer Terrence D. Crawford. Officer L.L. Lamar.
Now that the season is upon us, how about a political trivia question tonight? Who was the youngest man ever elected governor of Alabama? Here's a picture of him at age 3. Maybe that will help. You're still not sure. Okay, here's another at age 4. Okay, we'll give you another clue. He's the only man ever to beat George Wallace in a governor's race. For those of you who are still stumped, let's return to the photo album. Here he is at age 14 with his brand new Elgin bike. And here's his picture from his high school yearbook. His name, John Malcolm Patterson, a very interesting person. Patterson was born in Tallapoosa County in 1921, but spent most of his growing up days in Phoenix City. Graduated from high school in 1939 and decided to sign up for a one-year tour of duty with the Army. It lasted a lot longer. World War II erupted and Patterson didn't get home for 6 years. He saw extensive combat duty in the ETO, was decorated for bravery, and had reached the rank of captain when he was discharged. He entered the University of Alabama, earned a degree in law, and then joined his politically active father, Albert L. Patterson, in the law practice in Phoenix City. In 1954, the elder Patterson was nominated Attorney General on a pledge to clean up vice-ridden Phoenix City. Less than 3 weeks later, he was assassinated in this parking lot, and John Patterson was reluctantly thrust into politics. He was elected to fill his father's shoes as Attorney General, and 4 years later he ran for governor. He was not given much of a chance by the experts to beat the likes of George Wallace and Jimmy Faulkner, but it turned out there was a lot of truth in his campaign slogan, "Nobody but the people are for Patterson." He won by a landslide. When he was inaugurated in January 1959, Patterson was only 37 years old. Patterson's political career was much like a shooting star. It appeared suddenly, glittered brightly, then burned out swiftly. He sought a second term as governor in 1966, but was badly beaten. Then in 1970, he made an ill-advised race for Chief Justice and again was defeated. Today, at age 60, his hair thinner and grayer, politics is behind him. He practices law in Montgomery, and despite the disappointment of those last 2 campaigns, John Patterson feels he owes an enormous debt to the people of Alabama. He takes his responsibilities as a former governor very seriously. Wherever and whenever a former governor should appear, Patterson is there. It's time-consuming. It costs him money out of his own pocket, but it's a debt he feels he must repay. Some politicians who have been dispatched in defeat to Buck's pocket have never recovered from their wounds. To his credit, John Patterson has recovered completely, and he's done it with a lot of class. A very interesting person.
Both sides came to a 9-term agreement following yesterday's 2.5-hour meeting. The first agreement says Assistant Manager Henry Cook will be transferred to another Walmart store and a black assistant manager take his place. The other agreement outlines fair promotional and demotional practices regardless of race, which won't be an issue when considering employees to fill department head positions.
That all statements of understanding and agreements would be put in writing by Walmart officials and given to me as president of the Black Leadership Council by Monday, June the 14th, 1982. The management of the Selma Walmart store would cooperate and participate with members of the Black Leadership Council in monitoring the execution of the agreement at the Selma Walmart store.
After the news conference, Reverend Reese told picketers to take their signs down, but to stand by, just in case they're called to demonstrate at other stores that may be discriminating in its employment practices. Reese says the group is getting ready to write several letters to other stores spelling out alleged discriminatory tactics. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News in Selma.
It totally sells out the future generation of teachers. We do not have national average salaries in this state to offer people to go into the teaching profession, so the teacher retirement system has been an incentive that the employers could offer to teachers to get them to teach in this state.
They are very suspicious of any plan the governor proposes because things that he's proposed in the past have not worked out the way he said they're going to propose, and they usually work out to their detriment, and so they're very leery of accepting this. I think that's the general feeling.
Trailing by 11 in the fourth quarter, the Sixers made a run for it. Andrew Toney from outside. The lead was cut to 3. The Lakers came back with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar leading the way. The skyhook, no good. He got his own rebound. This time it's good, and he was fouled. With time running against them, the Sixers struggled, and the Lakers continued domination of the boards and worked their fast break to extend their lead. And now it was apparent there would not be a 7th game. When it was all said and done, the Lakers had a 114-104 victory, their second NBA championship in the past 3 years. A big disappointment for Sixer coach Billy Cunningham, jubilation for the Lakers.
How does this compare with the other two? Tell me, you're smiling.
You can't compare them, Stu. They're all great, and it's just, I'm really proud to be here.
Yeah.
We worked very hard to get here from last year. Last year was really a low point, and we worked our way back to this point. I'm very proud of this team.
I think the game Sunday gave us a lot of incentive tonight, and we really didn't want to go back to Philadelphia. They're extremely tough on their home court, and we did exactly what we wanted to do, close it out.
How do I feel?
How do you feel?
Simple pleasure. It's called relief.
What happened to your voice?
I lost it.
What about your club? They seem to come out a little bit more with more intensity today because of the fact that they had been embarrassed on Sunday.
No, they didn't. Stu, today was our day. It was the Lakers' day.
Nobody really expected us to get this far. And we got beaten by a very, very good basketball team that if a couple things had gone differently, we could have beaten.
County property taxes are due in October, but this fall they'll be a little higher than before because all property in the state has been re-evaluated and based on 1980 values.
They made the first appraisals back in 1972, which when ours was began. I think that some of them were appraised low then, and this is actually a 6-year update of property values, and values have gone up for the last 6 years, but where the economy is now, I guess people would say that property's not worth what they're putting on them now.
Driver says the Department of Revenue tells his office how to set the values and go about collecting the taxes. He says he's just taking orders and working overtime to get the notices out so that the taxes can be collected on time. Those notices have also caused some problems because some homeowners say they don't know how to figure out how much they owe.
These notices that were sent out, they have a total of the land and improvements. If it's a residential property that they live in, they take 10%. They multiply it times the county millage, state, county, and city millage, which is 3.70 per 100, less the homestead exemption. You can take an example of a $50,000 home, the taxes would be $148.
If you want to contest your property tax, contact the Board of Equalization. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
This hour, Governor James is breaking up the first of 2 meetings today at the governor's mansion with members of the media. The governor is passing along to reporters and editors the message he took to 4 South Alabama towns yesterday. In Dothan, Saraland, Mobile, and Gulf Shores, the governor told various business groups about his state employee and teacher retirement reforms. The governor's proposed reform would provide 3 options. One would allow teachers to keep their current benefits, and the other 2 would provide those workers with the options of getting a refund of their contributions, smaller future contributions, and 2 levels of reduced benefits in the future. The governor says any of the 3 options would still provide teachers and state employees with a competitive retirement plan while saving the state an estimated $30 to $50 million a year. The governor says he'll also include his crime reform package and a bill to increase layman membership of the state school textbook committee to the legislature during a June 21st special session. The governor says other reform measures dealing with higher education and employee fringe benefits will probably be offered during an August special session. The governor says he's excited about offering these reform issues during an election year, saying the candidates should be forced to take a stand on the cost-saving measures while they're stumping for office. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News. The governor brought his campaign to Montgomery as he met with members of the media at the state mansion. The governor chose this setting hoping the relaxed atmosphere, along with some tea or coffee, would make it easier to convey the complexity of his proposal, changing the state employee and teacher retirement plans.
I just think this is a classic example of how the cost of government can get out of sight and out of line. At no fault of the teachers or the state employees. It had absolutely nothing to do with this. And I believe it's incumbent on the legislature to get it back in line if the proposal is there. Now, or say to the people of Alabama, we're going to have an overpriced state government. We're not going to deliver the services we could be delivering, or either we're going to raise your taxes. Again, I want to try to say to you that this issue is cut and dried. There's no in-between ground at this stage of the game.
The governor says he intends to persevere in his campaign even if the legislature rejects it during the June 21st special session. The governor indicated he would offer the measure repeatedly during the election year. The governor blamed past legislatures for what he called ratcheting up the retirement benefits in lieu of offering good salaries. Governor James says with the new employee classification plan and better salaries, the retirement benefits throw the costs out of balance. He says his plan to modify the retirement plan will still provide competitive retirement and a financially sound system. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the governor's mansion.
Yeah, but... All right. Where's the pizza?
Mom, there's some out there. It's in the tool shed. It threw the ball at me.
I know where it's at.
Nobody go out there.
Stop now. You guys stay right here.
You stay here, Mom. We'll check it out.
And put those knives back. Okay, Elliot. Get the flashlight. Hold it. Wait a minute. Creepy. What exactly did you see?
That's scary.
There's nothing in here.
The gate's open. These. Coyotes come back again, Mom.
Okay, party's over. Everybody back inside now. Hurry up. Quick, hurry up. Tyler, give me that knife.
Oh, great. Nice one, Elliot.
It was an accident.
A pizza.
Yeah,
Who
accident.
said you guys could order a pizza, huh?
Him.
But in the house.
You geek, man.
My mommy was real, I swear.
Douchebag, Elliot.
No douchebag talk in my house.
I'm keeping him.
Great state. I will continue to recognize only one color, green, the color. Representatives. I have enjoyed representing the citizens of this great city at the municipal and state level. They wish to ask me any questions. I'll be here for some time. For 4 years, I have observed a majority of the Alabama Senate say yes to unreasonable budget demands by a myriad of special interests. If deficit spending were allowed, our state deficit would rival the federal deficit in a short period of time. We cannot allow this kind of Senate action to continue.
The drug bust took place on this quiet farm once used to raise chickens in the small community of Weagufka. In back of the farmhouse, there's a small garden. But the crop law enforcement officials were interested in was in this greenhouse, attached and concealed by a chicken house. Neighbors say until today they couldn't understand why the folks that lived in the house since January kept to themselves and kept the gate to the road locked. For most of the neighbors, it was their first look at marijuana, let alone nearly $500,000 worth of the plants.
There were 1,180 plants, estimated street value $450,000.
Sheriff Evans says today's bust was part of an undercover operation, but was not related to another large drug raid earlier this month, where $250,000 worth of illegal drugs was found in Coosa and 2 other counties. Arrested and charged with trafficking in marijuana today were 30-year-old Vicki Callahan, 30-year-old Gary Gillum, and 35-year-old Richard Maddox. All 3 were reportedly living at the house, but Callahan had a New York address, and Maddox reportedly told authorities he was from Birmingham. State Trooper narcotics agents and Coosa County Sheriff's deputies say when they raided the house, the trio was in the process of harvesting some of the plants. Besides the plants in the greenhouse, authorities also found about 5 pounds of packaged dope, an undetermined amount of marijuana ready for packaging, 4 to 5 pounds of seeds, and $2,700 in cash. Sheriff Evans believes this is the second crop grown on the farm in the past 6 months. In Coosa County, Don Phelps, WSFA TV News.
It was the noon hour when we arrived, feeding time for Homer, who's a 4-foot-long eastern diamondback rattlesnake that weighs 5 pounds. Sheriff's deputies want to keep Homer alive as evidence in the case against Morris, Today, Homer is having strained beef with vegetable baby food and vitamin E. He has to be force-fed. I'm told rattlesnakes don't eat while in captivity. Deputies are getting used to snake sitting, but they still don't know why Morris apparently used the snake as a potentially deadly weapon against McClellan, who was bitten 3 times May 17th.
We have talked with the man that was struck by the snake, and his first knowing that the snake was around, someone says, "What are you doing there?" And he looked around and saw blood running down off of his shoulder. And the man struck him again. He threw the snake down and ran to get in his car to leave. And
Sheriff Chambers says the pair worked together on an oil rig in Louisiana and came to Andalusia to buy a car tag. But Chambers says the circumstances and events leading up to the incident are puzzling.
the cause of it, why the man did it, is the one thing we haven't found out yet, and we are continuing with the investigation.
Morris is scheduled to be arraigned next Friday. In the meantime, Homer will be kept as evidence until the trial begins. Sheriff Chambers regards the snake case as a serious matter, even though he says it's the most bizarre case he's ever seen. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News in Andalusia.
Court-ordered reappraisal. There's a lot of folks says you use this as a vehicle to raise ad valorem taxes, but there's nothing in the order that says that you have to increase ad valorem taxes. It only says you got to equalize taxes, but it's been used as a vehicle for two different occasions to raise the ad valorem tax in this state. And in the lid bill, provision was made that the county commissions and city governing bodies could adjust millage. After evaluation, if it had raised their values more than they thought, their assessments, well, then they could reduce the tax burden by reducing the millage.
Coosa County Sheriff's deputies and State Trooper narcotics agents spent most of the afternoon pulling and loading $450,000 worth of marijuana plants. Some 1,200 plants were found in a concealed greenhouse located on this farm in Wagufka in rural Coosa County. At one time, the farm was used to raise chickens. Authorities believe for the past 6 months, the farm has been used to raise the illegal plants. Coosa County Sheriff Bill Evans says this is the second major greenhouse marijuana farming operation that has been raided in Coosa County in the past few weeks.
Is this part of the operation that you had earlier?
No, sir, this is entirely different.
Has this changed your technique in trying to find these things since people are growing them in greenhouses now?
Yes, sir, it certainly has. It calls for a whole lot more surveillance, wood areas around different parts of the county, chicken houses such as this.
Besides the marijuana, authorities recovered packages of dope, 5 pounds of seed, and $2,700 in cash from the house and the greenhouse. Authorities say they arrested 3 people who were in the process of harvesting the plants. They've been identified as 30-year-old Vicki Callahan of New York, 35-year-old Richard Maddox of Birmingham, and 30-year-old Gary Gillum, who reportedly own the property. All 3 are being held in the Coosa County Jail, charged with trafficking in marijuana. In Coosa County, Don Phelps, WSFA TV News.
By the state of Alabama, by the Auburn, think that this conference, long run, benefits forest management on small.
It's very easy to extend the analogy to other non-renewable resources such as coal, aluminum, iron. A number of agencies, government organizations, associations have conducted studies of both the U.S. and to a continuing long-term effort in timber production. The result of these 2 conclusions necessary to a continuing long-term effort in timber production came to essentially the same 2 years. A number of agencies governing the analogy to other non-renewable resources. So what's the problem?
I think it goes beyond just the state. The state is part of the problem with the recent problems of the market use situation. And some of these landowners here said their land taxes went up over 300–400%. But there's another area as well which involves